Hi, my name is James. Welcome to King's Fine Woodworking. Today I'm going to show you how to build these lumber racks or storage shelves that you can put in your garage or your wood shop or wherever you need extra storage. And since they bolt directly onto the studs in your shop or garage, they actually hold a tremendous amount of weight. It's a really simple project, so hang out and check it out. I've got several half sheets of CDX, like exterior plywood, and some studs here. The plywood's from another project. You can certainly get whole sheets and just rip them in half. The project is designed to use half sheets, which are just maybe a 16th under 24 inches or an eighth of an inch under 24 inches wide. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rip the face pieces that are going to go on either side of the studs that hold the brackets. So it needs 2 for each one of the shelf brackets. Then I'm going to go ahead and chop the studs to length. And we'll use a chop saw. If you don't have a chop saw, of course you can use a circular saw or anything like that. In fact, the whole project can just be built with a circular saw and a drill. It's not a very complicated project at all, and you don't need a lot of tools. And we've all got stuff we got to store. It's a pretty simple project. You can follow along with what I'm doing, but if you want plans, we do have plans available for it, and I'll put a link to that in the description down below. So the first 2x4s that I cut were the long 2x4s that are going to bolt onto the walls. And these are the short ones, which will be the brackets themselves. And of course you'll need one of these and 2 of the little pieces of plywood for each bracket. I want to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters. It was one of them who actually asked me to build or to make a video showing how this is done. You can see them in my shop. They've been there for a long time, but I just never thought about making a video as to how they were put together. So he asked if I could, and so we decided to do that. And here we go. This is all you need for a short wall of shelves. And here's how the brackets will go together. We're going to take a 2x4, probably put the nice side out, if you can find a nice side on CDX. You could get more expensive plywood, but it's just not necessary. I do like to use 3/4 inch, and then we're going to put one piece of this plywood on either side. You could, of course, assemble this entire thing with screws, which might be nice in case you want to unscrew it or take it apart later. But I'm just going to use the nail gun because that way I can put it together very quickly. In fact, the whole project, I think we probably spent maybe 2 hours on it, and then maybe the extra half an hour for filming. So it's a really, really fast project. But you just line those up to one corner perfectly and nail those together. You'll notice that the stud, of course, is shorter than the plywood, and you'll see why that is in just a few minutes. And I've put 6 to 8 nails on each side of the plywood, and you can use 2-inch or 2.5 inch nails. 2.5 inch has the advantage of going all the way through and going into the plywood a little bit on the other side. And I kind of alternate high and low to get an even spread on that nail holding down power. When I'm done with that, I'm going to take it back to the chop saw and just cut a little decorative end on the piece like that. You can do this or you can leave it. It gives you a little more open entryway to put things in, and it just kind of looks nicer. Once that's done, I want to sand it because I don't want to be putting lumber up there and rub my hands against these and get splinters. And this is, of course, CDX exterior plywood, which is just full of splinters. So I'm sanding it down nicely, and I'll only have to do it once. And this is probably the slowest part of the whole project. I've already spent 30 minutes sanding everything down, including the shelves themselves. But I think in the end it'll make a big difference down the road. It'll be all nice and smooth. Alright, so once we get these things sanded, we're going to put some pilot holes into the end, the overhang section of that plywood. I'm going to put 5 pilot holes in, and they're going to be countersunk. And we'll do that on both sides. I'm actually angling them in such a way so that it's easy for me to put them in when they're in place. But you can put them in straight too, it doesn't really matter. We'll give it a quick sand. And now we're going to mark the location of where I want the holes in these longer 2x4s. These are going to bolt onto the wall, into the studs on the wall. And I'm going to put a line about every 6 to 8 inches, and that's where I want these holes to be, these pilot holes to be. I'm going to start with a Forstner bit. This is a pretty big one. I think it's a 5/8 or a 3/4. And that's because the structural screw that I'm using, it's a GRK screw. It's got a washer head on it. And so the base of this hole is basically what's going to catch that washer head. And I don't want to really get an extra long screw and go all the way through the 2x4 with a screw. So I'm going to drill these holes down about 1.5 inches, and I still have 2 inches of meat of 2x4 left to carry that load. There's the screw. You can see what that looks like. And then I'm going to go ahead and put another pilot hole in the very center. It's the same diameter as the outer measurement of the threads of the screw. I don't want the screw to have to force its way or cut its way through these. I want the screw to just be able to slide into these easily, and all the cutting of the threads to be done into the wall of the shop. And there it is. That's how that will hang down there, that screw, and that's how much penetrates into the wall. It's about 3 inches. We used, let's see, they're 5/16 by 5¼ inch screws, I believe. And there's our holes all ready to go. This is Ryan. This is my daughter Kavita's boyfriend. He works full-time in the shop, and so does my daughter. And he does a lot of work for us. He's a great woodworker, and we're lucky to have him. So he's going to start by putting it in at the top, just one screw. You will want to put a chalk line or something across the top, or mark what height you want these all at. And then after you do the top one, you're going to want to level it. And that way you'll kind of ensure that these go directly over the stud. If you don't know where the studs are, like for me here, it's easy to see where the holes are for the studs, where I put the screws in holding that up. But if you don't know, you want to get a stud finder out, because these screws, they're structural screws and they have to go into the studs. And there's that 5-hole pattern. We've slid this bracket, pushed this bracket onto the 2x4. And we want to just screw one screw in first. And then we want to use our level, and we want to push up on the outside end just a bit so that it's actually higher on the outside, so it's leaning back. Because once you put a lot of weight on this, it goes under load, they're going to sag a little bit. We want them to sag down to about level. So we'll have them a little higher than level to begin with. And then we can go ahead and fill up all the rest of it with screws. Now, if you've ever been in construction, you know that screws don't have nearly the shearing strength of nails. But we've got 10 of these screws here, and that's a lot of force for just one bracket. So I think the screws are going to be far more than what's necessary to hold a serious load. All right, so now we're going to cut our shelf. We've marked the length of the shelf, and we'll just cut this off with a circular saw. Don't forget, if you want to grab the plans for this project and help support the channel at the same time, there'll be a link to them in the description below the video. Now once that's cut, we want to get our sander out, and we do want to sand those corners, those edges, and maybe even some of the flat, and get rid of the splinters, because this is CDX plywood and it's got a lot of splinters. Once that's done, we're going to take these over and set these in place. All of our brackets were laid out and installed at whatever height we wanted those at for that particular row of shelves there, the particular row of brackets for that shelf. And we'll set the plywood on top, and all this really takes is 4 or 5 screws to hold this thing in. The 2x4 on the wall there is a little bit twisted, and so Ryan's going to basically hold this out, push this out into position a little bit before he screws that in, just to kind of square it all up, keep it looking nice. And I tend to do like a screw at the front and the back, maybe in 3 different places on each shelf. They're going to stay in place, but we just want to make sure. And really, that's all there is to it. We've got those all lined up and screwed in and installed, and now I have a ton of storage in this little shed. You can even take a look and see inside of my shop. These have been up for years, and I've had these things packed with lumber like all the way to the top, every shelf holding many hundreds, maybe even sometimes 1,000 pounds a shelf. No problem. And you can stand on one of these brackets. They hold a lot of weight. Well, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.